Hello and welcome everyone to our Manage Your Product Lifecycle in ClickUp video. My name is Jake and I'm a trainer here at ClickUp. I'm happy to be with all of you today. Today's video will last for about 45 minutes. After this video, you'll be able to set up a development project in your workspace. You'll utilize the Gantt or timeline views for a product roadmap. You'll enable and manage your work using the Sprints ClickUp. And you'll be able to highlight information and team progress by creating dashboards. Now let's go ahead and dive into our example workspace. Now this is a real world example where we have two teams focused on creating a mobile application for both our Android and iOS platforms. We are using a few templates from the ClickUp Template Center to go through the ClickUp hierarchy. At the top level, we do have our workspace. We're right now for company XYZ, and we're working inside of this space. The space is broken up into the mobile team for the product development, as well as the desktop team for the product development. Now, this is software focused example. However, this can also be used for hard goods or for developing tangible items. So it's mainly focused on software, but ClickUp can do so much more than just that. The next level down from our space level is going to be our folders. This essentially, we're breaking up the product teams into their specific specialities and focus. For example, there's that iOS and the Android team. We then have lists inside of each of those folders as specific areas or specific projects that the team is working and managing. And then from that, there are tasks and subtasks, which are actionable items that need to be pushed, need to be completed to push our application out to the general public. Again, pro tip, this is just one example of how you could set up your hierarchy in ClickUp. You should do whatever is right for you and your team and the work that you manage. Now for today's video, I will be focusing on the iOS mobile app. I have another manager focusing on the Android mobile app, and all of their work will be tracked in this Android folder here. Now, we are still working towards the common goal of having a mobile application for all of our users. However, because of the differences between the operating systems, we are breaking out our work for the time being. I do just want to call out that we do also have a list for the ideas that the mobile app product managers could discuss at our weekly meetings. This is a list where we're just throwing any ideas that come to us and see if we want to actually try and tackle them as a mobile app team. One way to get those thoughts and get those ideas is to utilize a form. Forms inside of ClickUp are a great way to start a new task, to get your ideas, or to just intake information. So you can choose to require some of the different items. You can choose to have dates, a lot of different information that you can go through. I'm not going to cover that during today's video, but forms are a great way for if you just need to, when you wake up in the middle of the night and add something to the ideas list, a form's a way to go with that. Now let's dive through what our product lifecycle is. So first things first, we need to have a plan or a product brief, or even really a product requirements doc or a PRD. Luckily, ClickUp does have a product brief doc template that can get you started with monitoring our lifecycle. To go ahead and utilize that doc template, what I would do is inside of my iOS folder here, I want the PRD to be visible for anyone working in our folder. So I'm going to go ahead and click on this plus icon right here next to the folder for the iOS. And I'm then going to choose the From Template option. What this does is it then shows any templates that I have in my specific workspace or from the ClickUp community, which is that template center that I mentioned before. I'm going to go ahead and search for a product brief. And I can see right here, I've got one that I can click into. I can look, find more information, and I can go ahead and say, use this template. If I wanted to, I could even give it a nice name to say, here's the iOS PRD. And then I can click use template. By adding this doc inside of the folder level right here, you can see that this is a section inside of our sidebar that our team can quickly reference, can quickly view, and make sure that we are tracking towards what our goals or our KPIs are. Now, this product brief template is a starting guide. This is meant for you to then take it, add to it, customize it as you want. And from there, you can then choose this option right down here. So if I come to the doc itself, if I choose the 3 little dots or the ellipses, that's going to be the settings. A little pro tip for you when you're working in ClickUp, any place that you go and you see these 3 dots or the ellipses, that basically means it's the settings for what you're hovering over. So over here, I'm in the side of I'm hovering over the reported bugs list. I can then see the list settings or these folder settings. So what I would do if I get this product requirements doc as set up as I want, it's got everything that we need, and I want our Android team to use it as well, I can save that as a template. So that way then our team can go through and utilize what we've already done. So they're not reinventing the wheel. They're taking what we've created and they're using it to make it so that we have standardized documents, and we're saving time because it's from a click of a button. There's no extra work to copy and paste and move from one thing to another. It's all done, a couple of clicks here and there, and you've got a new doc created for whichever team you're working in. What you can also do inside of our ClickUp docs is you can reference them directly in a list or even in a task that it's related to. So all that you would need to do is, again, hover over those 3 dots for the doc settings, and I would then choose to copy the link. What I can do now is if I wanted to have this be visible really when you first come into the folder, I could embed a view. So if I choose up here at the very top to say plus view, I can then choose the embed option down here, and I can go ahead and paste in that link. I can go ahead and give it a fun name, so the iOS PRD, and I'm going to actually pin it. Pinning it goes ahead and pushes it to the front of our views. That way it makes it more visible for the team when they're coming in here. Now, I mentioned you can also do it inside of a task. So it's not just related to adding it to a list in an embed view. If I were to come here, let's say for our features and our homepage, I can go ahead and I can reference that in our description by utilizing the @ symbol 3 times. So if I do 1, 2, 3, I can then search for the product brief, or I can go ahead and even add in the iOS PRD. And choose the product brief. I think that's the one that we want. So this way there, we've got that information. It's clear, it's right there. And now what's great is if I come back here, so it is that product brief, I've got then the relationship to show me that it's referenced in the homepage task. And if I wanted to, I could click here and it would take me directly back to the task. This allows us to minimize that context switching. All of our information is in one centralized location. We can reference it multiple different ways if we want. It can be referenced in a task, in a list. It can live in your sidebar. It can be favorited. There's a lot of different ways to keep your work manageable and allow you to not have to click around and see, oh, was it related to this or that? You've got all the information right at your fingertips. So now that we've worked on the PRD, the product requirements document, and our team is in agreement, we need to begin planning out our roadmap. Now, remember, our software team is working on 2 different versions of the mobile app. We've got the one for Android and the one for iOS. We've renamed it, and essentially how we're breaking it up in our company is we've got the different features that would be associated with the different platforms. This way, then we can begin working on our specific features and breaking them down into more manageable work. And we'll get to that more in a second with our sprints. Now, a best practice, or even really a pro tip, when you begin to break down your epics or your features into more manageable user stories. So right here at the very parent level, I've got homepage, membership, etc. I can go ahead and expand that. And that then shows me the different user stories that I have, as well as any tasks or any items related that I've put here as a subtask. This is a great way. So going back to that pro tip, when you're breaking this information down, we'll want to utilize a custom field to easily pull this information out of what is an epic, what is a user story, what is a bug, and quickly be able to visualize that information so that we can clearly see what the team is working on. Now, what I would do is I would actually add in that custom field. I would do it at the product development space. And I would go ahead and choose those three dots, those ellipses, and I would then choose to go down into the more settings, and I would choose custom task fields. Now I could create a dropdown that would show the type, that would show the epics, the user stories, the bugs, the product, whatever it is that we're tracking. And I could do that with a new custom field and a dropdown right through here. However, my desktop team, they've actually been utilizing ClickUp now for a few weeks. So they may already have a type that I could just steal from them. And this is a pro tip as well, is utilizing the custom fields from one space in another space is going to cut down on the headache of remembering, is it a item type in this space, but it's called type in this one. And it makes reporting that much easier because you've got everything right there. They're all labeled the same. And so you've got that information. So what I would do to see if our desktop team actually does have a type or an item type is I would choose use an existing field here. And I could then pick and choose around so I could see maybe labels, no, maybe the text, no. So I'm going to search type. That then will show 00 and drop down of 1, which is perfect. And I can even choose to edit this to see, okay, yep, these are what I need as well. So I'm going to go ahead and save this and then go back to that existing field and just choose to use this field. That way now, any of my tasks that fall underneath the mobile app space will have this custom field as an option to fill out. What's great about using ClickUp is the ability to quickly update custom fields if you need to. So I could select right through here just by selecting all of these. And then by using the bulk action toolbar up at the top, I can choose to set the custom fields for the item type to be the epic. I can save that. And now if I were to go into our home page here, we can see that that item type is epic. I can also do the same for the user stories if I wanted to as well, just by selecting and doing that. These have already been pre-used, so that is why they've already been pre-selected with the user story. It comes from the template itself. Okay. So now that we have our epics clearly identified, we have started to plan out our roadmap, we have the release month when things are going to be released, we need to properly share that out with our executives. Now, there's two ways that we could share this out with our executives. We could do it per platform, so per the one for the iOS, one for the Android. However, our executive team doesn't want to click back and forth to see the information from one team versus another team. They just want to see the overall mobile app progression. So what we would do is we would actually go to the mobile app space here, and we would then choose to create a Gantt chart. Now, a Gantt chart, I'm going to go ahead and remove these just to start new and fresh. A Gantt chart is great because it's going to show the sequence of tasks and any dependencies that you may have. If, for example, my iOS team can't start something until someone else finishes it, I can clearly show that inside of a Gantt. Now, when I first created this, it shows me the information. However, this may be too much for our executives to see. We actually need to customize and we need to make it relevant for them. So what we would do, a few things to update that, is we would actually choose to filter. And I'm going to choose to say, I want to filter based off of the item type is epic. Or I could choose to add in if the item type is a feature. And what's great about doing it this way is we can also add in a grouping or a second area for the filter. So I could come in here, add a group there. And I could say, I only want them to show from our features list. So it's a list that we have in both of our folders. And so I'm going to choose from the iOS, I want the features list. And from the Android, I want the features list. So now I can go ahead and update this. I changed this right here. So this filter is saying it's going to show the task where the item type is epic or the item type is feature. And then down here, or the location is either of these two. Okay, I may even want to change those around to potentially have those be displayed in a different way. Maybe instead I want to say the location first. So we'll go ahead and do that, the location, and then add a grouping where we'll say if the item type is epic or the feature. This is something that you just have to play with and kind of update to make sure what is relevant for you and your specific use case. Now, this is great. I can start seeing more information. However, it's defaulted to the week/day for the timescale. And my executives, they want to know it just a little bit higher. So instead, I'm going to choose weeks or year/month. I can choose instead, maybe month/day if I wanted to see it even more granular. But I'm going to choose year/month just so I can see that right through here. And then last but not least, they want to be able to see, because if I'm here and with my Android team here, this is great. I can see it. But if I'm just quickly looking, I don't know which team is which. Like, I don't know who's working on this. So I can utilize the show option in the upper right-hand corner. And I can choose the color scheme to show based off of the list. This way, then, it allows us to easily see, here is the iOS team, or the ones in green, and the Android team is the one in red. So I can quickly see what's going on, how's everything progressing. I can also see those dependencies, so that membership is blocking the enhanced customer portal. So if the membership goes long, I can't start on enhancing the customer portal just yet. Now, you may have noticed as I was updating the filters, the timescales, any of the information there, we get this pop-up down in the bottom right-hand corner that says the view has unsaved changes. If I were to ignore this or even choose to revert, what would happen is any of the changes I made would not be saved. They do not get stored. So that way, if I came back to the Gantt in a week or in a month, it's not how it looks right now. So I instead would go ahead and save that, just so that way then anyone who comes to this view would see it how I've set it up today. Now, another way that we can visualize our roadmap is going to be through a timeline view. This is a great way. So it's very similar to the Gantt. However, it provides a high-level overview of that project start, end date, and important milestones. So all I did, add a view and then selected timeline. Just like with our Gantt view, we're going to want to update some of the filtering and the grouping, some of those settings. So I'm going to go ahead and go through the same process, choose the filter. I, again, only want it from the location. So I'm going to choose features and features. And then I'm going to add in a group where the item type is feature or the item type is an epic. Okay, so now we've got that. We've got the little pop-up here, so I can choose to save it. And now, still a great way I can visualize at least kind of deadlines. And if I hover over the task, it highlights when the dates are, which is handy. But this is still zoomed in too much for my liking for the executives. So I'm going to actually expand it to say the week, or even based off of the month if I want to. And now a great part of the timeline view is going to be grouping. So one of our main asks from our executive team was figuring out which team is working on it, when or who's doing it. So we'll still do that show, and we'll do the list there. But now this is still a little jumbled. It's not, it's giving me better information because I can see it more, but it's still not that completely relevant. So what I can do is I can actually choose this group by, and we have a custom field that is going to show the release month. This is something that then I can group it by. So now I can see everything that was supposed to be shipped in September, everything coming due in October, November, December, all that information. I can quickly see it at a glance based off of the release month. If I wanted to instead, I could choose to group it by the list. So that way then I could see the iOS and the Android team and have it be a bit more broken up if I'd like. I'm going to again choose save just to make sure that it is saved for when I come back to it at a later time. Now, how are our executives going to see this? Are they going to have to log into ClickUp every day to check on it? What about, just for their quick meetings or things like that? How can I actually get that information displayed to them? So whichever view that you would like to do, you can choose in the view settings. You can then choose in that sharing and permissions to create a public link. What that does right there is this then provides you a public link, and you do have some advanced settings that you could choose from to have certain stakeholders, certain executives, the opportunity to see that information without logging into ClickUp. It's a live link. They can come to it whenever they want to, and it is not something that they need another password or anything like that. What you can do is some of the advanced settings, you can choose to have it expire. So if this is only a short project, I could have it expire in 6 months. I can also choose to allow our stakeholders the ability to open tasks and see more of the information than just what the task name is. So if I enable that right here, I can then see the task properties, and I could see everything is turned on, but maybe I don't want them to see our comments or our attachments or tags. I can turn whatever's off, whatever I don't need. And so now if I were to copy that public link and add it into an incognito window, I can go ahead and paste that in, and we then get the view that the executives or the stakeholders would see. And because I've enabled that so that if they click on it, they can see certain information. So if I open up inspirational quotes, I can then see here's all of our custom fields. Here's information inside of the description. And as you can see there, this doc, because it's not shared publicly with them, they have to log in. So that even if there's some information that you may have documented in the description or things like that, if it's not shared with them, they can't go through and see it. But they can see the assignee, the start, the due date, all that information, all the custom fields and everything as well. Now we've shared out our roadmap, our executive team is on board, and now we actually have to start doing the work. So this is going to be where our sprint ClickUp and our sprint points really come in handy for managing your work in ClickUp. This is something that your admin for your workspace may need to set up. And by doing so, they would go to the sidebar, the bottom left-hand corner with their avatar, and they would then choose the ClickUps right here. Next, they would then search for sprint, and they would make sure that these are turned on. So the sprint points and the sprints. There's even some other features that you can see. For example, sprint points, we can have it roll up. So that way then the parent task is going to show the roll up the total amount. Or we can have it based off of points per assignee if we wanted to. Sprint points is how my team is working on it. However, there is other options for time estimates or even custom fields if you wanted to that you could use similarly for choosing how much work there is in a task. You can also see that there are some spaces right here. It says 2 spaces. If you try to create a sprint folder and it is still not something that you have as an option, it may be down at the space level. So you would just be able to click on and off, make sure that whatever space you're working in has it enabled. One other thing to call out is this tasks in multiple list, and specifically down here, the subtask in multiple list. Because of how my team has structured our hierarchy, we've got the parent task as that epic or the feature, and then we have the user stories as the subtasks or just the items that need to be completed. I would want to ensure that I have this subtask in multiple list checked. That way, then I could add those user stories to my sprints as well. Okay, so now that all of this has been turned on and enabled, I'm going to go ahead and go back into our mobile app development space. And I'm then going to choose the create folders and list. And I'm going to create a sprint folder. What that does is you get a pop-up for some sprint settings. My team, we're working on a 1-week sprint duration. We start every Monday, and we are utilizing the point estimation. Again, you can choose the time estimates or even that custom field if you wanted to. Next, we've got the sprint name. This is actually going to happen automatically whenever you have a new sprint list. It's going to say sprint with the number. So if it's sprint 1, sprint 2, etc., and then with the start and the end date. Now you could choose whichever date format that you would like, and it would model off of that. One key part of this sprints and really our sprint ClickUp is going to be our sprint automation. Now, please note this is available for our business plans, and above. However, it is something very crucial that I do recommend purchasing. What you can do is you can choose to create new sprints automatically. This would allow you to easily start planning out further sprints. So say, for example, I want to always have the next 4 sprints created. Then I would never have to worry about, I've got my next month planned because I'm able to start adding in those tasks, those user stories to the different sprints. Another feature of the automation is you can mark it as done automatically. This would then happen on the last date of the sprint. At 11:59, it's going to mark it as done. And it then allows you to, if you wanted to move any unfinished or kind of the spillover tasks automatically to that next sprint. This is great for when you first are starting out with your team, getting into that sprint methodology and getting kind of your sprint groove. Because if you overestimate and you say that we can do 100 sprint points, and then you find out that you can only do about 80, having those extra 20 that aren't completed, they can then automatically be moved over to the next sprint. I'm going to go ahead and choose Save That Settings. And then I can see that this pops up with creating the sprint. So it's going to show me for September 19th, 2022 to September 25th. That's our first sprint. Or I could choose to say that our first sprint is going to be October 10th. For this, I'm going to keep it on September 19th. And I can then choose how many sprints do I want to have it create. Because I put in that 4, the number 4 on the previous settings, it's giving me 4 here. But if I wanted to, I could do 10. I could do up to 50 sprints automatically. So I'm going to go ahead and choose create those sprints. And then what has happened is, so now this sprint folder right here automatically has those 10 sprints right through there with the dates and everything. And you can then click and see, and it takes you essentially into the list itself. Now we've set up our sprints, we know when they're happening, but we now have to start adding our user stories and our features to the work so that we can manage it. So we can actually go to our features list, and we can then add the subtasks or even the task itself to the sprint. There's a few quick ways that you can do it. The first one being, you could go ahead and right click on it. You could choose add to and then say add to another list. Similarly, you could also click into it and then go ahead and choose to add it to the sprint. Okay. This one was something that we did before. We've just cleared it out, so we don't need it on that sprint anymore. Another way that we can do it is we can go ahead and choose to select multiple tasks or subtasks at a time. And I can then, using that bulk action toolbar at the top, I can choose this move or add subtasks. And I'm going to choose add to list. And I'm going to then choose which sprint it is. So sprint 1. However, the easiest way when we're inside of the list view right here is going to be going over to the far right-hand side and choosing on this plus icon for add a column. And I'm going to choose the show/hide. I'm going to then search for sprints. I can choose to add the sprints and even maybe choose the sprint points, let's say. And then what's great is so now they have been added. They moved automatically over here to the left. And now I can go through and I can start adding these to whichever sprint that I may need. Again, this was one that we had previously, but I could come in here and I could say that I need this on sprint 2. This one needs to go to sprint 4. The notification fireworks, this needs to go to sprint 2. And I can start just adding those in to the list themselves. It makes it really easy to quickly see that information, to see what the team is working on. And then what's great is I can still click into this and it will take me to that specific sprint or that specific list. And now from this, we can actually utilize some key details at the very top in our list info here in order to see what is going on specifically with the sprints. I'm going to go ahead and refresh this real quick. But you can see that here are the dates. Again, it's not started. If I were, I could move it into in progress. That way we're actively working on it. The icon changes to blue. Or if I were to mark it as done, it's then that green icon. But what's the last great piece of information for the info is going to be the points up here. It automatically sums up the total sprint points that we have for this specific sprint. So now I can go through. My team and I would be working out of these different lists to ensure that we're meeting our goals, that we're accomplishing our work, and that we're progressing our product through its life cycle. Now, once we've started going through this and we've got a few iterations of sprints and we've started managing it, our executive team or even our higher ups are going to ask, how's it been going? Are we productive? And we can actually visualize that information using a handful of the sprint widgets available inside of our dashboards. For this dashboard, so over in my sidebar, I'm going to choose dashboards, and then I specifically have this one for the desktop application. Again, they've already been using ClickUp for a while, so they've got a dashboard set up already. Ours will be set up in a few weeks once we really start getting our groove and start working inside of ClickUp. Now, these sprint widgets, so I can see the sprint burnup, so the number of points. So right now, as of Thursday, September 15th, we're at 48 closed and done, but we've got a scope of 92, so we've got a lot to make up. We can see our burn down with those sprint points. So we can see that on September 13th, we did good. We got under our target, but now we've gone a little bit further up. So we need to start getting back on our target here. We can also see our velocity chart, our current sprint cumulative flow. So again, with the sprint points, being able to show the different statuses, and then even the cycle time if we wanted to as well. This cycle is actually showing for our mobile team. So I'm going to then go ahead and choose our desktop team to have in their folder. So we can then see roughly how long it takes from an active status to when it is closed. And right now it's about 3 days. A couple other widgets that may be helpful for you would be your workload in status or workload by status, excuse me. This just shows that right now we've got 90% of our tasks in progress. That's great. That's what we want to see. But we've got, 9% or 1 in a to-do. We also can do some calculation widgets. So if I were to just add in a widget here, we can then see here's that calculation. So we can then pick and choose what gets displayed, even to include some filtering. And for this, I just wanted to filter to show the number of overdue tasks. Right now I'm at 2, with the sum of sprint points being 5. I've then even added in a list view that is showing me anything that is overdue. That number two over here is going to be displayed right through here. So if I could go ahead and say that this has now been resolved. And what's great is then the dashboard would get updated if you were to refresh it, or if you were to utilize the inherent ClickUp refresh timer. So you could say that it updates every 15 minutes. In 15 minutes from its last time, it's going to update, and now the number of overdue tasks should say 1. Just to manually do it, I'm going to add it right through here. Now, these dashboards, one thing to call out is this is not something that I can share publicly outside of the ClickUp workspace. It is something more internal for you and your team. However, you can still get that private link. So that way, then you can share it out. You can even choose to favorite it if you want to. So that way, then the favorite is always shown where you have it. I've personally pinned my favorite, so that's why it's the top of my screen. Your favorites may be over here in your sidebar. Okay. Now, a few frequently asked questions that we get for this is the sprint widgets. Are they only available for sprints? The answer is no. You're actually able to utilize the sprint widgets for lists, sprints, or custom fields. When I'm setting this up, so I can see here's that current sprint burn down. If I were to choose the settings gear or even just add in a new widget, I can see inside of this source that I say I want to see based off of the list. It then would give me different options to show it. So I could say, like, for the Android team, show all the folders, and I could do that if I wanted to. The one caveat about using sprints and using the sprints ClickUp for the sprints widgets is you're actually able to. So inside here, I've got that mobile app. I've got our sprint folder. I can actually choose the current sprint in sprint folder. So that way, then I'm not having to come back in here every Monday morning and update it to the newest sprint. So that is one thing to potentially be on the look to be aware of, because you can utilize that current sprint in the sprint folder. Another question we get asked a lot is, if we have a separate QA or quality assurance team, is there a way that we can easily have them review our tasks when they're ready? The answer is yes, you can. What I would recommend doing is I would go to the location, so most likely the sprint folder here, and I would choose to add in an automation. So up in the right-hand corner of that sprint folder, I'm going to choose automate here, and I'm then going to choose add an automation. What this does is I would choose to say I would have a status that is already set up to say QA ready or QA review, whatever it is. And I would then have it set so that when the status changes to QA review, in this case, I'm going to say complete, it then would add it to their list. That way, it's automatic. You don't have to worry if that task was added, if the QA team is aware of it. You automatically know, you update the status, it pushes automatically to that specific list. And then another question we see a lot is, how can I remove past sprints from the sprint folder? Like, this is great. Once we get further down the line and we're 15, 20, 30, seeing sprint 1 is not going to be helpful. So what you can do is you can, again, choose those 3 dots or those ellipses, and you can choose to archive it. What that does is that actually archives the list. It is still searchable. You can still find the information. However, it's not clogging up your sidebar. So those ones that you may not need anymore, you can archive them at any time, and they're still just there. They're in the background, but they're not something that they're not extra noise that you need to see. And finally, the last question we get a lot is, when we're working in the sprint folder, I just want to see what's assigned to me. I don't care about seeing the rest of the team. So how could I easily do that? So the one way that I would recommend is creating a new view, whether that's a list, board, whatever view that you want. I'm just going to duplicate this one as a quick way. So I've got that copy of the list, and then I would choose, again, those 3 dots, those ellipses. I would then choose the more settings right down here, and I would choose the default to me mode. Me mode then automatically shows if you've got a task that is assigned to you, if you have an assigned comment, subtask, or even a checklist item. So now I can come in here. It doesn't matter. This is sprint 3. This is sprint 4. Doesn't matter across those. I can easily see here is what I should be working on. So that's a great way. And then again, you can even choose to pin it, rename it if you want, add it to the favorites. I normally like to say my tasks. So a quick little way for you to know what it is you're working on. Now, if you are still interested in learning more about ClickUp, we do have a wealth of knowledge here on YouTube. However, you can also connect with us to learn more about the platform. I'd recommend if you go in your sidebar to the question icon over on the left, you can choose the university, the ClickUp University. It's a free on-demand training service that you can do different learning paths or different courses to really beef up your knowledge about ClickUp. Another one to highlight is going to be our Help Center. This is a great way for you to go through the different categories. You can even search based off of sprints or sprint points, whatever it may be. And then it shows any relevant help articles right there. Now that was everything that I wanted to cover today. I do thank you all for watching the video, and don't forget to leave a like if you enjoyed this video. Thank you so much and enjoy the rest of your day.